In the news this week, how safe is your personal data? Local experts' response on Facebook's data scandal.
Also one step closer, the federal government's push to cut company tax.
The Flying Kangaroo launched direct flights from Perth to London.
And baptism of fire, WA Police welcomed its newest cadets.
This is the Evening News with Ivan Leung and Danielle Staniscov.
Good evening. Local experts have responded to Facebook's data scandal after the social media giant publicly announced that 50 million people's data was misused and obtained without permission. CEO Mark Zuckerberg said it was a mistake to share personal information with app developers. Taylor Hannah, what more can you tell us?
Well, Ivan, an analytics data firm has obtained personal information from more than 50 million Facebook users without their consent, sparking an investigation into whether more apps have the ability to harvest and use their information.
There is an argument that there is no such thing as privacy in social media, and that your privacy is gone the moment you join a social media platform. And I think many people are starting to see that in very real terms, particularly those that are very active on Facebook. They're the ones that are likely to be used and abused the most.
David Cook, cybersecurity expert, said the fear of data still being accessible long after deleting your account is real, and the information shared will be available indefinitely.
You have to remember that it doesn't work in retrospect. What you've committed to Facebook, you agreed to share, and that sharing arrangement is still in place even after you go back and delete certain messages or texts.
Social media users must be aware that money is made by passing data on to third parties and should be expected. Mr. Cook also said to think before you post.
The best advice about data on Facebook is that once you've committed it into the open source, open space, that data can be accessed again and again, irrespective of whether you delete it.
Back to you, Danielle.
Taylor, thank you. Experts are warning that employees and small businesses will lose out if the federal government's tax cuts for businesses pass the Senate. There are concerns they won't benefit from the legislation, despite the Business Council of Australia promising more investment and higher wages. Nelson Liu reports.
It's designed to make Australian businesses more competitive, but Brett Davies says the federal government's corporate tax cuts won't benefit small businesses and workers.
It's not good. It's a political ploy.
The tax lawyer claims there's little value for small businesses, despite big businesses promising investment, jobs and higher wages if it's passed.
Small business, which is the backbone of this country, that employ more people than large business, will get no advantage out of this tax reduction.
He says the legislation to cut the tax rate from 30% to 25% for big businesses has been ill thought out by the federal government.
It will not work and will not help growth in this country and will not bring money into this country.
The Business Council of Australia made the pledges in a letter to senators this week. However, the legislation has faced opposition criticisms of anti-competitiveness. There's a strong push from the Business Council to lower taxes, but experts say it won't happen unless there's enough political motivation to do it.
There's certainly negotiation that will be had, and I think that the crossbenchers can't just be seen to sign off on this policy.
The legislation is close to passing the Senate, with only support from Darren Hinch and New South Australian Senator Tim Storer now needed. Nelson Liu, WAMN News.
The Dreamliner Boeing 787-9 direct from Perth to London has launched. The 17-hour flight spanning over 14,498 kilometres will create a gateway strengthening the relationship between WA and England. The non-stop flight will also boost tourism, causing direct investment into WA business, leading to more WA jobs. Hello. Qantas CEO Alan Joyce was joined by Premier Mark McGowan to board the first flight from London to Perth.
The state government says it's baffled by a student's violent attack on another student at a Busselton high school, calling the act sickening. The 16-year-old boy was left with serious head and face injuries after mobile phone video filmed during the attack revealed he was repeatedly beaten. Education Minister Sue Ellery says the attack isn't acceptable and more violence prevention training for teachers is needed.
It is not acceptable in any way, shape or form for that kind of violence to be happening in schools, full stop. The student has been charged and all of the evidence around exactly what happened, I'm sure, will be examined.
Environmentalists have rallied at Parliament House calling for ending to plans to increase logging in WA's southwest. More than 200 people protested while the Greens delivered a petition to the state government. calling for greater protection for forests. Forest spokesperson says there are great risks for the environment if logging is increased.
Absolutely. We know that the habitat is declining, is decreasing. The black cockatoos are, the numbers are falling, and we need as much habitat for them as possible. Also the western ringtail possum. There's numerous different birds and mammals, but also you have to look at all of the life in the forest.
The United States Senate has passed a $1.3 trillion spending bill to avoid a government shutdown for the third time in 2018. The bill was passed hours before the self-imposed deadline, with 65 yes and 32 no. Many politicians were struggling to finish reading the bill, which contained more than 2,200 pages. The European Union President agreed with Britain that Russia could highly likely be responsible for the former spy's poisoning. A joint statement was released by the European Council, with 28 leaders in the Union showing solidarity on the matter. The tough statement was made following British Prime Minister Theresa May's latest comment on the incident.
And finally this week, WA Police welcomed 39 new cadets into the force after 28 weeks of intensive training. All the cadets were tested on their physical and academic abilities on frontline policing work. The officers graduated will begin their careers in frontline policing roles.
My message is congratulations. You've succeeded in graduating from the academy. The world is in front of you. I wish each of them to have a fantastic career in WA Police Force, and who knows, one of the graduates tonight might go on to be an Assistant Commissioner or Commissioner of Police.
And that's our program for this week. We have the latest news on our website and Facebook page.
From Danielle, myself and the rest of the team, until 8 o'clock next Sunday, a very good evening to you.
Good night.